Good morning, my friends out there in Facebook land. This is Pam. I did a partial video earlier and then discovered when I looked at it that my shoulder kept getting in the way. So it was hardly a decent video. So I'm starting again. I deleted that, so if you're looking for it and saw that I was going to be on and that I'm not, that's why. This is 300-pound paper made by Indigo. 300-pound is the weight of the paper. It's more like actually it's a little heavier than a cardstock. It's very thick, very, very thick, which makes it very absorbent because it's 100% cotton, which is what we strive for in watercolor. At least I do. I have become quite the paper snob. I'm very particular because when you discover that your paint and water and your paper, how they all work together, it becomes really important to you to get the best results that you can. And the correct paper, just like any workman, if you have good tools, the results are going to be different. So this is my paper setup for this morning. I did tape it down because this does have a tendency to buckle just as it gets wet. Gonna let this water soak in for a minute, and then we're going to do some wet on wet. Wet on wet is when you pre-wet your surface and then you add your colors. I have pre-mixed some phthalo blue-green and ultramarine blue, and it gives me a beautiful teal, which I really, really like. Just going to kind of direct it a little bit. I love to see the marks that it makes as it runs down. To me, that's really, really pretty. The paints that I'm using today are my M. Graham paints that are, the binder is honey. If you know me at all, you know that I have a lot of different paints, different companies. Actually, probably too many, but you know, this is what I do now. Now that Jerry's gone, I paint a lot. So it's what I have and what I enjoy, and so I like to experiment and try different things in different colors. So that's my teal. I'm gonna let that kind of run a little bit here, see how that goes. I like that. I really don't have any finished product in mind at this moment. This is what a lot of us in watercolor call warm-ups, where you just kind of get in here and play, and then just kind of let the watercolor paint itself, which it does. That's one reason I like it, because I never know what it's going to do. And when you blend the colors, they're just so gorgeous. I'm going to go back in with actually some just straight ultramarine now. Just put some drops on the tops. And let those do their thing. Watercolor will dry lighter than when you put it on. So you got to keep that in mind when you're dripping in your colors, because this is just a warm-up. Even though the paper is expensive, I am learning that to get your most satisfying work depends on the tools that you're using. So don't be afraid to use your best tools. If you're practicing with inexpensive paper because you don't want to use your good paper and mess it up, you'll discover that even on expensive paper, if you mess up, it's still going to look better than if you had done it on inexpensive paper. because the paper and the tools make a difference. The brush I'm using this morning is a Skoda Versatile Synthetic number 10. Number 10, I think. Yeah, it's a number 10. So I like that as well. So I'm going to just kind of watch this and see what it's doing. Got a few little puddles here. As you know, I've mentioned before, the water will channel the paint down into the paper. And because this paper is 300 pounds, it has great absorbency. So as it dries, it will absorb this. It'll be lighter. I like this. To me, I can kind of see a tree or maybe even a mountaintop there. I don't know. See what it decides to do. I think I'm going to go with a violet. I have some dioxazine purple. Maybe add some of that teal with it. It's nice to keep the same type of complementary colors in your painting, so they blend better. They don't necessarily overshadow one another. Oh, there's a slight difference, not a whole lot. There is a little bit. Because these are transparent colors, as they dry, the colors will separate, as it were, and you'll see the other colors as well come through. I'm liking that. That's the dioxazine purple with a little bit of that teal that I made with the phthalo green and ultramarine blue. It's pretty. As a warm-up piece, this can be a background for another piece later. Can maybe do something on top of it. As I see things emerge that strike my fancy. You just never know with watercolor what you're gonna find. But to me, this is really fun. Often people say that blank sheet of white paper is intimidating because you don't know what to put on it and you don't want to mess it up. My mentor, Angela Fair, says it's only paper. It's just waiting for you to discover what's there, to put a new discovery in it. So that's what I'm doing right now. And so far I'm really liking this. I think what I am going to do is splatter some of this ultramarine blue. It's kind of overwhelming a little bit. But we'll try. Like I say, this is a warm-up practice piece. And of course, my hands are the one that take the brunt of splatters, and my face, and my clothes. I'm buying new clothes because most of my clothes are paint splattered. So I need to buy some new clothes as the fall approaches. Let's see if I can get this paint off of here. So there we go. Some of these blotches, I might just spritz a little. Give them some movement. See what they want to do. I love the spidery veins that makes as it runs down the little tributaries. Like rolling down that river. I'm not worried about the drips because, like I said, it's just a practice piece. But it helps you to get the kinks out when you're starting first thing in the day. I don't want to do too much because then I ruin it. Less is more, especially in watercolor. You want to leave some white space in the paper because that's what brings life to your painting, is the light of the paper. You want to see this little drip going down? I guess you can see that. It's just finding its own way. So I'm going to let this dry. This is one I did earlier when I realized that my shoulder was in the way the entire time, so I deleted the video. But this is drying much lighter than when I put it on. And I also put some salt on this, so we'll see what that does, if it's done anything. I only put a little bit. I don't think I'm going to put salt on this one, though. I'm just going to let this one just play. Might be a great waterfall. It might be a, I don't know, might be a tree, might be a landscape, might be a flower. I never know. That's why I like watercolor, because I enjoy spontaneous play and painting. The nice thing about doing something like this is by playing with your colors and mixing them and see what they do, is then later when you are doing a planned piece, something that you do know what you want to do, if you're looking for a desired result, you can go back and say, oh, I did this color and that color and this is what I got. And I like the effect that I got from spraying the water. I like the effect that I got with the salt, or I like the effect that I got with the saran wrap, making patterns on it. So by playing, you're actually learning. Just like our children, when I taught kindergarten, we played games in order to learn the vowels. We played games to learn our numbers. And then I used to tell the parents, if they go home and tell you that they didn't learn anything, they just played all day. Well, actually they are learning. They're learning through their playtime. So that's what this does for me. This helps me to learn what my colors do, what the water does, what different types of paper work. And it's an amazing help. Don't be afraid of a blank sheet of paper. Sometimes when we first start, it's like, oh, I don't want to paint on this because I'm going to mess it up. It's just a piece of paper, and it's just waiting for you to express something from your emotions, from a reference photo, from whatever you're feeling on your heart that day. With watercolor, you can just pour it out, and you will discover that it's very therapeutic. And if you use the better tools and the better paper, you're going to have better results. So don't say, well, I'm not going to use my expensive paper. I'm just going to practice on my cheap paper because I don't want to ruin it. Actually, even if it's not something you were wanting to do, if you're using the better paper and the better tools, even your mistakes will look better than if you're using cheap paper and cheaper tools or less expensive tools. I have gotten to the point now where I spoil myself pretty badly now that Jerry's gone. So I do spend money on supplies and paper, brushes, and paint to get what I want. And it really does pay off. I do enjoy my sketchbooks, but even that, I'm very particular in my sketchbooks to use 100% cotton paper. I don't want the cellulose because the watercolor won't absorb correctly. So my favorite source for sketchbooks, if you're looking for a great art sketchbook, is Etcher, and their paper is 100% cotton. And they have 140 pound, which is the least that I actually enjoy painting on. I have a couple sketchbooks that are like maybe 130 or 120 pound, and they're not the same as painting on something like this that's more absorbent. But if you're just sketching and then lightly filling in with watercolor, they do a great job. So that's my little expression for this morning, and I'm going to let it dry, and we'll see what happens to it. And it could be the base for another painting. I might come in later when it's dry and paint over it. because a lot of this is going to be lighter. It's actually going to change and do its own thing. I don't use a hair dryer when I use my watercolors because I want to let them absorb the paint and the water the way that watercolor likes to, and let the watercolor make the decisions for me. And then I'll go back in and see where it's leading me. Hope you have a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and I'm going to say goodbye.